When I got back home to California, I told myself I was going to buy a business or I was going to die. It is so life-changing. Like one deal and you have the business, making the money that you've always dreamed about making. You don't need to keep doing more.
The great wealth transfer.
The great wealth transfer.
The great wealth transfer
is referring to the plethora of small businesses owned by baby boomers who will all be retiring in the next 12 to 15 years.
Do you think you'll become a billionaire through this?
If I keep buying 4 companies every single year, I'd be doing like 60 million. You multiply that, not times 5, not times 10, but times 15. 15 times 60 million, I'm pretty much a billionaire. If you get into the wrong deal, then you can set yourself back a long time. So it's important that you get the right deal, that you know what you're doing before you get started. But all it takes is one opportunity to change your life forever, for the better.
Welcome on to the Playbook Podcast here. We're out here in Medellin, Colombia. It's good to see you. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, Raven Harris. That's it.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Raven Harris. Well, I don't want to spend too much time here talking about stuff that people don't really want to hear about. I'd say let's just hop right into it. I'm sure everyone's here. You know, they hear you do private equity. They hear you buy businesses.
Right.
They hear you make a lot of money. I mean, you can tell me, but on track to become a billionaire. So kind of break it down for us. Like, you know, what does that look like with the private equity, like, and buying businesses?
I mean, big question. I think that a lot of people don't really know too much about the space. There's a lot of financial gurus out there who talk about a lot of ways to make money. I think that I came across one of the best ways to make money, and that was buying cash flowing businesses, you know, businesses that have been around for a long time and they make money. And as times went on, I found out that I didn't need a lot of money to get into it, and you don't need a lot of money to be great at it either.
Obviously, that's a big word. People hear it all the time, like private equity. Okay, yeah. People make a lot of money, but for the regular person watching this podcast or thinking about getting into it or even just like buying a smaller business, is that something that's achievable for them? And if so, like how would they go about doing that?
I mean, it's achievable for everybody. I think the biggest thing that you have to do is believe that you can do it. I know everybody talks about mindset. I remember when I first wanted to learn about business, everyone would be talking about mindset. And I'd be like, why is nobody actually giving me the facts? Like everyone tells you that you got to believe you can do it, but no one actually tells you about how to do it. And that used to be the biggest thing that bothered me. But as I went on in business, I realized that the mindset was the most important thing. When I was in high school, I just wanted to make it to 10K a month. And then as time went on, I realized that I started to believe that I could do more. I started to prove to myself I could do more. And then it was 100K a month, and it's like $1 million a month. And now it's like, as big as I can dream is like as far as I want to go.
I know you throw like that 10K a month number there, and I think that's like what everyone puts in their titles,
right,
whatever you want to call them, the gurus, the influencers, the people talking about business these days. It's always 0 to 10K a month. So are you saying this opportunity for someone, I know you said it's a better opportunity than anyone you found before, but is this like a 0 to 10K a month opportunity, or is this like more than that?
I mean, what's great about this is that you can buy a business of any size. Like you can go and buy Joe's ice cream parlor across the street and make 5-10 G's a month. And if you're happy with that and that's all you need to get by, then you can do it. But if you really want to build a life most people can only dream about, then you got to think bigger. And that means doing hundreds of thousands to millions, you know, every year, month, whatever it is.
So you can buy any business at any size, so any amount really. I mean, would you recommend someone goes big, small, like say they're looking to buy their first business, like what should they buy?
For me, I always recommend that the first business you buy is at least $500,000 a year of profit. And the reason why is because everyone says that they want to buy a business that they don't need to be there 24/7, right? Like that's the goal of every business. You build something that operates whether you're there or not, right? You want something that makes money while you sleep. And so if you buy a business that does less than $500,000 every year in profit, most likely you're going to use debt to buy these businesses. After you pay off debt, and if there's any, you know, inefficiencies in the company and you hire some good talent to come and replace you, you're not going to have too much money left over. So you need to make sure that you're doing more than 500K so then you can actually afford to live off that business and still have a good lifestyle. You have enough margin of profit within the business that you can grow it, scale it, hire a good team, and you don't need to worry about it as much.
I see. So you recommend at least 50 or at least 500K a year in profit, which is roughly like 40-50K profit a month. Would you say that's like enough money these days from like the people you've worked with and the businesses you bought in your own life, that like that's enough to be financially free, or kind of what's that look like?
Yeah. So, I mean, me personally, the first business I ever bought, I was 23 years old when I found it. and I took $50,000 and I turned it into $1.5 million, right? And that's through using other people's money, OPM. So I took other people's money and I was able to take that and go out and buy a large company that was doing $600,000 a year, every year in profit. And this was a company that I found within just a couple months of me searching. And I started to realize that if I could do it once, I could do it 1,000 more times.
I see. So you found that business at 23 years old. Kind of go a little bit more in depth. Like, you found it at 23 years old, and then once you got that deal done, you felt like you could do it a lot more times. Like, how did it feel when you were getting into that deal? I know you said mindset was a big thing. Everyone talked about that. Like, what was kind of your mindset of even searching for a deal and getting into it?
First, I remember back when I was in the military, I was buying rental property.
When were you in the military, for context?
When I was 18, 19, 2000, okay. I don't know, 2019 or something like that.
Yep.
And I started buying rental property while I was in, and I started looking at the cash flow, and I was making great money for, the property. But at the same time, I realized I would need 100 or 1,000 houses to really get to the lifestyle that I wanted. So I did the math and I was like, okay, if I could buy one house a year, basically I'll have the lifestyle when I'm dead. And so, I heard from some billionaires, they're like, real estate makes your kids rich. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? That's what they call it wealth for a reason, is because you're not the one who gets to keep it. Right. And so, there's the rich people and there's wealthy. And so wealthy is like you pass it down. And so while I do think that real estate is still a great asset to purchase, I had read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and it was all about buying assets. But in the book, they only talk about two sorts of assets, maybe three, right? And so one is going to be buying stock, the second is going to be buying real estate, and the third is going to be starting a business. But in the book, they mention, there's this short line in the end of the book that always stuck with me. It was like, you can buy any of these assets, real estate, stocks, start a business, and other assets. That line stayed in my head, for years. And I was trying to figure it out. What is other assets?
You think you was talking about crypto?
Yeah, for sure. I don't even think crypto existed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In that time. And it was really just that there's these other things that you can buy, right? That are going to produce money for you while you sleep, while you live a whole different life. And it's really up to you to build it. And also in the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which I recommend to everybody, my dad gave me that book when I was 13. They talk about how there's assets that only rich people can buy. And I thought that was so mind blowing. I was like, there's money that you have to have money to be able to make. That really stuck with me because I understood that there's everyone else who's thinking about all these things that they can do with the money. And then there's just another way of investing, which no one even knows about, unless you already have money. The name for it is a sophisticated investor, right? Or an accredited investor. And so this is somebody that the government legally says is smart enough to be able to invest in more risky assets, right? And so those risky assets are usually just things that produce a higher return than the stock market. So they're not necessarily risky, they're just not easily found. And so not only do you have to have the money, but you also have to have the ability to find them.
The biggest risk at the end of the day, and you can kind of go more in depth about this as well, as like, it's not really a risk of like buying the thing or the asset or anything like that. It's more a risk of not having the proper knowledge, not doing the proper due diligence,
For sure.
and not having the skill set to make it successful. I mean, I think that probably lays into a good question here. Like, everyone I personally talk to when I'm like talking about buying businesses or bring that topic up or it gets brought up at all, they're always talking about making their wealth through real estate,
Right.
like you said.
Yeah.
And that's like their way out the hood, whatever you want to call it. That's their way to financial freedom. You're talking about buying businesses and things like that. Like, everyone thinks it's super risky. Do you feel like it's super risky?
The most risky thing you could do is get into it without having the knowledge. If I didn't do years and years of studying, right, then I would say it is probably one of the most risky things because you put yourself under a tremendous amount of stress with all the debt that you're going to take on to buy these companies. Now, of course, there's a saying from the Dondo Investor. It's a great book on investing that you want to get into opportunities where tails you win, heads you don't lose much, right? And so those are the opportunities that you want to get into where you can really have a great opportunity if you win, but if you lose, you don't break the bank. You don't end up in the poorhouse after. And so those are the types of opportunities that I talk about because for me, if I want to invest, I want to play long-term. I don't want to play short-term. So I want to keep making good opportunities and finding good deals.
Basically, you feel like if somebody has the proper knowledge that buying a business isn't risky, but you wouldn't recommend someone get into buying businesses without having the proper knowledge.
Right, 100%. And so for me at the time, there were no podcasts. There was maybe one book out, Buy Then Build. There was nobody talking about buying businesses. But when I was in the military, I'm over here buying houses, and I thought, you know, how are people making money, right? Because there's got to be someone out there who's making millions and billions every single year. And how can I get in on some of that action? And so I started studying the greats, and, you know, Warren Buffett came across, you know, the table, and I started realizing, okay, this guy must know something about money that other people don't. And I start to look, and I see what he does is that he buys businesses, right? And so I thought, okay, if this guy's buying companies, how can I do that, but on a level that I can, you know, get into, right? Because no one's going to give me $1 billion opportunity. I got to work towards it. But maybe I can get a multi-million-dollar opportunity. Once I realized that, I spent all my time going in trying to figure out how I could engineer this opportunity for myself. And I remember I was in college at the time, and I'm in business class, and you know, I'm going because, you know, the military gave it to me, free opportunity.
Oh, yeah.
Might as well go to college. But I'm a big no college guy. But I was like, you know what? I don't want to waste the opportunity. So I started going, and I'm in business class, and there was a project where I had a business idea. I submitted it to my teacher, and he tells me that basically what I wanted to do was impossible. And that just didn't sit right with me, because not being able to do it is one thing, right? But saying that it's impossible as in no one could ever do it forever, I just thought, you know, teachers should never say anything's impossible, right? If you dream it and you could believe it, you know, and it follows the laws of physics, then you should be able to make it happen. And so literally that day I dropped out of class. That was my last day ever in college. And I knew that I wanted to buy businesses, so I went all in on just scraping the internet for knowledge. I moved back home to California, where I'm from, and I told myself, I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to buy a business, or I'm going to die. Because, you know, I had tried so many other strategies. You know, I tried to do online businesses. I was a million side hustles. You know, I was cold calling houses for wholesaling. I was doing everything.
Just to rephrase here, you were in college. Your professor told you couldn't do it.
Heck yeah.
Said it was completely impossible. You drop out that day, and you're moving back straight to California, and you're like, I'm doing nothing else but doing this, or else I'm gonna die.
Yeah.
Well, what made you pursue that opportunity specifically? Was it your professor telling you that, like, hey, this is impossible? Or was it like you doing a bunch of other things that didn't work, and you're like, like, this is the one? Like, how did you know it was the one?
Thanks, Professor Jordan. So because of that guy, I knew that I didn't want to be studying business. I wanted to be in business. I had already seen enough that the opportunity was better than all the rest, because there's people who tell you how to make money. For example, they tell you how to make money online or how to start a business, but it's a risk, right? What is the risk? The risk is that you can put all the time and energy into it, and if you're not good, or if it's not the right time in the market, or if you chose the wrong industry, you don't make any money. I realized that I'm buying businesses, or have the opportunity to buy businesses that are cash flowing. They make money. They've been making money for the last 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And so if they make this money, then the bet is, can I keep making the same amount of money? Or is it once the business is transferred over to my hands, I lose it all, right? And I'm like, well, I think I'm at least competent enough to maintain, right? I might not be able to grow the business, right? But I should at least, if it's been making money for the last 20 years, then I should at least be able to, you know, let it make money for another 5.
Well, I mean, you say like buying these businesses that have already been making money for like decades, and, you know, say it's like an opportunity, like an e-commerce brand, like selling physical products, or starting window washing, a service-based company, something like that. Like, I feel like there's like tons of houses out there with windows to wash, and there's millions of products you can possibly sell and come up with and invent. But like, you're talking about businesses that have been around for decades. Like, how many businesses are actually out there that people can buy? Like, how many people could even get in on this opportunity? Millions.
I don't know the exact number. I'd say probably, I don't know, 5 million, 10 million small businesses across the US. And the thing is, most people are not looking to buy them, because what happens is, a lot of times these businesses never even go to market. You have some mom and pop shop that's doing millions of dollars a year. The kids don't want to follow in the footsteps of their parents. They want to go be a YouTuber. And so what ends up happening, like yourself, and so what ends up happening is that they have these businesses that are just, they have no succession plan. They don't have any good management to take over. They're making great money. And then the, you know, mom and pop shop just says, hey, let's close up, because no one's going to take it over and we need to retire. So they don't even think about selling. Most people don't even know about the opportunity that their business is worth something. And a lot of times their business really isn't worth much unless you do something with it. You get it and you work on it and you make it into something.
So there's millions of businesses out there, but like be real with me here. Like, how many of these random businesses are making millions of dollars? Like, do you have examples of like types of businesses that would be doing this? Cause like, if I started to brainstorm here, like, I don't know, like, there's so many things out there. There's roads, there's buildings, there's wood, there's so many stores, but I wouldn't even know where to begin to look or what to think of.
I mean, the best idea that I've come across is that you want to buy businesses that you think are going to last until the day that you die. So you want to think about a business and say, is this going to be around when I'm 100 years old, right? Unless you're already 100, then you want to think, is this going to be around when my grandkids are 100, right?
That's crazy if you look at buying businesses at 100.
You can do it at any age. You got to believe in yourself. The idea is that if this business can last, my whole life, then this is something that I might want to invest in. And if you can take that mindset, extrapolate it, and apply it to each business that you look at, it's pretty easy to tell what's going to stick around, right? Is, Joe's ice cream parlor that I talked about going to stay around for 50 years? I don't know. Joe's ice cream parlor only does, a couple $1,000s a month in revenue. And, ice cream might go out of fashion at some point when, all these Gen Z kids say that they want to eat gluten-free ice cream or something,
Mm-hmm.
And so if I compare that to another company, if I compare that to, let's say
Yeah, what are you going to compare Joe's ice cream parlor to here?
so let's say that you wanted to compare it to Haagen-Dazs,
Okay.
for example, right? Haagen-Dazs, it's still ice cream, right? But they have a lot of flavors, a lot of categories. The business is already in multiple locations, right? Across the U.S., in other countries. I mean, we're out here in Medellin right now, Colombia, and they sell Haagen-Dazs ice cream.
Yep.
Right? And so why? Because they have a business that's bigger than just one individual. It's an actual company. And so the larger the company, and that's kind of one of the proponents that I talk about when buying a business, the larger, the safer, the less risk. And that's usually why you pay a premium for larger businesses, right? And there's small businesses, which you might pay 2 to 3 times profit for, right? Which is where the sweet spot of what I like to pay. But if you're looking at businesses on the stock market, which are considered more safe, right? They're in the S&P 500, you're paying 20, 30, 40 times profit for those businesses, right? And the reason why is because it's considered a safer investment. The vehicle is safer, right? It's not going to disappear overnight.
Yeah, 100%. I get where you're coming from, saying the bigger companies, the bigger brands, that they have customer bases, they have marketing channels, they have things set up. I mean, they've been around for decades. So what is it, the Lindy effect that says the longer something's been around, the longer it's going to be around?
Right.
Do you know that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, business guys talk about it all the time. I mean, it's a fact. You can stay around for a long time, then you're going to stay around for a long time. But the thing about that is that business is precarious. You never know which way it's going to be. You can never control the markets. You never know about future trends. You never know what's going to happen. But with the best strategy that you can do is that you can really, what you could do is really study the mechanics of the company, right? What are the operations of this business? How is this business differentiated in the market? Because sometimes there's a need. And when you have a need for a service or a product within an industry, then that business has a moat around it, right? You want to buy a business with a moat. Warren Buffett says you want to buy a business that has a moat around it. And in the moat, you have sharks and lava and piranhas, right?
Well, for like moat is like an analogy for business. Like for anyone listening that doesn't know moat, like how would you describe that?
If you got a castle, you want to protect it, right? So you put around as many barriers to entry as possible. And so it's the same in business. Do I want to be in the low tier gardening service industries, right? Probably not. And the reason why is because I might have built this business over the last decade, but guess what? I'm competing with little Joey, right? And his lawnmower that he decided this weekend he wants to make some extra cash. So now all of a sudden he wipes out a whole neighborhood because he wants to go on a lawn mowing spree. So to me, there's no moat around that business. But maybe if you have a lawn mowing business that also has contracts with large school districts, then these contracts are going to be government held. And so they're going to last for a long time and they're hard to break. That business can have a strong moat around it because no one else can just show up with a lawnmower and start cutting your high school's grass.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. So you're looking for businesses with moats. You're looking for ideally bigger businesses that have a brand built, that have all this stuff built up so they stay around for longer. So I think that makes sense. So you're coming back from college here to get a little bit back into your story, and you're dead set on buying this business, and now you know it's the best opportunity. Like, how did it go from there once you got back to California?
I moved back to my parents' house after, which I was like, this is, if I'm going to go all in on this.
They let you move back in?
Oh yeah, for sure. Big family guy. So if I'm going to move back in, then I'm going to go all in on this. I'm not going to get a job. I'm just going to crash out here for as long as I possibly can before my parents kick me out again or something like that, right? While I was back at my house, I realized that I had to spend as many hours as I could finding deals, right? And while a lot of people say that the deals on Biz Buy Sell aren't the best, and I'm one of those people, I still think you could find good deals on online websites because that's how I found my first deal. Basically, what I did is I spent all my time going through businessesforsale.com, biz by sell, and reaching out to every broker. So not just looking at the deals, right? Because the deals are one thing, but each of those deals is posted by a broker, and each of those brokers have other deals. And sometimes those deals aren't online, right? So you could reach out to brokers and people who are also business adjacent, B2B, right? And so what does that mean? You can reach out to people, for example, CPAs or attorneys who work with businesses hand on hand, and they also know a lot about what the business operations are, right? So they might know that a company is either failing or doing really good, and that business may never have been on the market. But because you've built the relationship or you've offered some sort of incentive for these lawyers and CPAs to give you these deals, now you can start getting deal flow that's off market, but it's still a good opportunity. And it's the same for the brokers. You go to Biz by Sell and you reach out to the broker who may have posted some business online. Nobody really wants it, but he's probably got some other businesses that he has up for sale too. So you reach out to him through Biz by Sell and say, could you send me a list? When you reach out to brokers, what's important is that you know what you're talking about. You want to show them that you're not a tire kicker like everybody else, because everyone else is just, hey, how much is the business? Give me the information. I always tell them exactly what I'm looking for. I'm looking for businesses that are a decade or older in the service-based or manufacturing niche, doing between 500,000 and $1 million of EBITDA, which is profit, every single year. And I send them that in a quote. So they know I'm serious, I know what I'm looking for, and they're going to give me more attention than everyone else. And I say the same thing when I get on the phone with them, because being able to speak the language is just as important, especially when you're doing your first deal.
This is kind of getting into the deal flow side of it. It seems it's like for looking for these leads of like the best businesses to buy, you said these online marketplaces are good to start off with, but you start contacting the brokers that are also there. They probably have other businesses for sale. And then also people that work in adjacent with these businesses. So CPAs, different people like that, and they can help you with the deal flow.
Exactly. Pretty much there's an infinite amount of people who work in industries that know a lot about other people's businesses. And if you can find out who those people are, for example, suppliers of other businesses, then you can get a lead that is off market. And the reason I say you want to go off market is because that's where the best deals are, right? When someone posts a deal online, there's a broker who adds a fee, right? The online brokerage like Biz by Sell is going to take a fee. And then on top of that, they're going to be trying to sell them for top dollar because the brokers know how to value a business. And well, actually, a lot of them don't, but they know how to overvalue a business for sure. If you go direct to the source and you talk to a business owner, a lot of these times, like I said, these people don't even know that they can sell their business. So now you give them an opportunity. Hey, you ever thought about retiring? What are you going to do? Who's going to take over? Oh, I haven't thought about that. Well, now's your opportunity to say, hey, I can give you a multi-million-dollar exit. Let's work together. Let's figure something out. And if there's no brokers, no advisors on their side to slow down the deal, you can get a lot more opportunity that way.
So now that you're at your parents' house and you're spending all of your free time, pretty much all day, looking for deals, contacting people off these marketplaces, stuff like that. I know you said you found your first deal on the online marketplace, Biz by Sell. Could you break down a bit of like how that deal went and like the mindset leading up of like how long it took and the mindset it took to get to that point to get that deal through?
Yeah. So, I mean, the deal only took me 30 days to find. So, which is quick because pretty much everyone says that when you get into the search phase, right? And a lot of people do it, they go to Harvard, and then in Harvard, they tell them about ETA, entrepreneurship through acquisition. And they tell them, hey, it takes about 2 years to get a deal done. And if you go read the book, Harvard Business Review, How to Buy a Small Business, they say the same thing, right? And so they talk about all this stuff and people believe that that's how long it takes. But I knew that I didn't have 2 years and I would not wait 2 years to buy a business. So I just did everything they said and I just put it into overdrive. I spent all my time talking to business owners and people who could possibly know business owners. And this is the way to expedite the process. And I still had a lot of time left in the day, as I was looking for these businesses. It wasn't, at some point you run out of leads, right?
Well, I mean, mindset in terms of like, did you ever second guess that like, I guess it didn't take that long to find your first deal, but were you ever like thinking about switching to something else? Or were you like, man, this maybe doesn't work? Or like, you were just like straightforward the whole way?
No, once I came across this opportunity, I knew that it was what I was going to do for the rest of my life. This is such a crazy opportunity. You could take $50,000, stretch it into $1.5 million, and then make $500,000 until the sun dies out. Like
in perpetuity, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. There is no end to it. And then if you take the cash flow, you go buy another one, bigger, right? Better, faster, stronger. Then there's really nothing stopping you from getting to your goals fast, because that was the biggest thing for me, is that I'm always thinking about how to do things faster, right? I think that the mindset of people who have made a lot of money in life is that they're just thinking 10 years out today. And so they're thinking, how can I get there 10 years out today, fast as possible? And the faster you can think, the more shorten your timeline, the easier it is to get there, right? If you give yourself 20 years to do it, you'll never get it done. But if you say, I got a week to finish it, even if it takes a couple months, you still beat 20 years.
Yeah. So now you know how to find deals. Why would somebody not take this opportunity? Like for what reason would someone do something else to make money?
Honestly, I think that in business, you have to go through a lot of opportunities, kiss a lot of frogs before you find something that's real. And then you realize everything else sucks compared to this. Okay. So like if I didn't try all those side hustles, I would not have been able to see how great of an opportunity buying businesses was.
Which side hustles did you try before finding this one?
So before I started buying businesses, I used to cold call every day trying to wholesale and flip real estate. Of course, I had my own rental properties that I was trying to continue to buy. I had done many small businesses from the time I was in high school, selling candy, throwing parties, making money. I almost didn't go to the military because I was making so much money throwing parties in high school. But I realized I didn't want to be 30 years old throwing high school parties, you know?
Yep.
So then I was like, I got to find something better. So I realized the military could be my next route. I was also driving for DoorDash just to make extra cash.
Dang.
Just whatever opportunity could put more cash in my pocket, because I knew I wanted to be an investor, right? And a specific type of investor, you remember? I wanted to be a sophisticated investor, one of those people who could invest in those esoteric business opportunities that no one else could know about except for the extremely rich.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I see. So you try all these opportunities and you find your first deal, and was that hard to push through your first deal? Like, kind of walk me through the process of like, okay, now you found it on the online marketplace. Was it hard to get from like finding it and knowing you wanted that deal to like then owning the business?
Yeah, for sure. I'd say that honesty is the best policy when you're doing your first deal. I just came straight up with everybody I talked to. Hey, this is my first deal. I'm hungry about getting it done. I'm serious. I'm a serious buyer, right? You think that it's not necessary to say these things, but you have no idea how far it will take you from just being so straight up, so straightforward with everyone. Because most times people are on the phone and they just want information, but they're not action takers. So if you just tell people, I'm an action taker, give me the information I need, and I promise you we'll get a deal done, people tend to give you more of what you need and help you along the way. The broker who was actually representing the sellers of my first business ended up becoming one of my good friends throughout the deal, because he really just wanted to make a sell. And he saw I was hungry on getting a deal done. And so he was giving me advice on how to value, how to structure, what's a good offer. He was telling me if I was a little high, a little low, different ways that I could get better at buying businesses. He was giving me all the information. He didn't even work for me. He worked for the people I was trying to buy the business from. And the reason why is because he saw that I was hungry and he saw that I was serious. And so it's the same information with the banks.
You're telling me you wouldn't recommend telling them you have $100 million portfolio if you've never done one deal?
Yes, I know in today's age, everyone thinks you have to lie to get ahead,
Yep.
but it's absolutely not necessary. Like if you can just tell people that you're serious and you'll do what it takes to get the deal across the line, that's really all you need. And again, you might have to fabricate a couple things, right? When I was buying the first business, I wasn't necessarily a mechanic for auto repair, right? But I was a mechanic in the military for airplanes. So when I talked to the bank, I told them I was a mechanic. They didn't ask any more questions after that.
Yeah, and like I don't want to make this sound like it's all sunshine and rainbows. Like I'm sure there was a lot of hard days in your path, and there's
you want to hear some stories?
There's a lot of second guessing it, and there's a lot of times probably where you feel like giving up or just doing whatever, right?
Yeah.
I think it's human nature to do that. So like, what would you say was the hardest part about getting that first deal done?
Well, the thing about the deal that you're always gonna battle over is gonna be two things. It's gonna be the price and the terms. Every deal hangs on the balance of price and terms. You can either negotiate the price or you can negotiate the terms. And so this deal specifically, what tends to happen is that there's never enough cash on the tax returns, and banks only want a loan off how much money's on the tax return, because banks are very conservative. So they want to play it safe. They want to say, we need proof that this business really makes the money you're claiming that it does. Is that, of course, the tax returns don't reflect the amount of money that the business owner is claiming. And so what I had to do is I had to get creative. What's important about buying businesses is that you can be as creative as you want. And the more creative you are, the better you're at making deals. The only thing that stops you from getting a deal done is how creative you are. And so in the beginning, I just wanted one loan that covered the whole price of the business, and that's it. Right. And so that would have been 10% down on $1.5 million, which was $150K, which I didn't have. So I realized that if I was able to get the seller to take a portion of the total purchase price as a seller note, which means he kind of acts as the bank. And instead of me paying out all the money to the bank, I pay out the seller some money from the business profit to him over time. Then that would actually reduce the amount of down payment that was required by the SBA. So I no longer had a 10% down payment. I had a 5% down payment. And then because of the fact that this business didn't make as much money on paper, right? Because they needed to prove to the bank, but in reality, they were taking in a lot of cash. Well, what does that mean? Well, for me, that's an opportunity. For anyone else, they would have ran scared, right? Oh, the business owner is claiming all this money, it's cash and it's not provable and there's no opportunity here. I'm not going to go through with the deal. I saw through some slight detective work that this deal was actually a good one. And what I mean by that is there's quantitative analysis, but there's also qualitative analysis.
Yeah, there's like the numbers of the business, and then there's getting in the field and actually seeing what's going on.
For sure. And as time goes on, you do get better at it. And I'm way better now than I was then. But I looked at the business and I realized that there's some key elements to this company that tells me it's a great business, right? So what are those things? I went and met the business owners. One, they seem like nice people. It could mean whatever, but I started to really grow the relationship with them. Second, I went to the actual location. The shop was nice. Like this was one of the nicest auto repair shops I ever been to. It felt like luxury, right?
Yep.
If you're a cheap shop, not making a lot of money, you're not spending a lot of money to keep cookies at the front desk, right? You're just not doing it,
it's
right?
true.
Free cookies, right?
You're not going to find cookies at a shop in the hood.
Exactly. And so, this is not what they teach you at Harvard Business School, but this is important information, right?
Yep.
And so I'm looking at the deal and I'm like, all right, I looked at their calendar. They're fully booked. I'm looking at their cash collected through the week on a notepad that they keep track in order, right? Could have been made up, but this is just more and more information that's telling me these people have a business that is what they say it is, right? And then one of the kind of nails in the coffin they told me, all right, this business is that when we couldn't get to a price that the seller wanted, right? And again, price versus terms, we couldn't get to a price the seller wanted, he was willing to walk away from the deal. And it wasn't that he was just going to walk away and try to resell. It's that he literally said, I will just keep running this business and make the money that I want. And then once I've made a couple more years worth of this great money because the business cash flows, then after that, then I'll go sell. And if I can't get the price I want, that's all right. But I'll have made money over these next few years. For me, it's worth it. And so that's green flags to me. Well, it seemed bad at the time, right? At first, like, oh, this guy doesn't want to sell. But then I realized, wait a minute. This means this guy has a great opportunity for me to buy a business.
That's a pretty strong pull. It's
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
if you don't want to pay I'll just go make the money anyways.
Yeah, I'll just go keep making money, right? And so I'm like, okay, that's enough information for me to know this is a good enough opportunity for me to take action. And so because, again, price versus terms, I couldn't negotiate on the price, right? He needed a solid number, right? And so that was fine, but I needed my terms. And so if I need specific terms, that means that I was able to negotiate $1 million from the bank, $500,000, around $500,000, right? From the seller in a note that would be paid out over 5 years.
Okay.
And so if the seller was lying, right, and that cash didn't exist, I only owe $1 million to the bank. And so based off the tax returns, this business made enough money to pay back the $1 million to the bank. That's why the bank loaned on it.
Yep.
So I was safe. And so even if the seller was lying and it didn't make the money, well, I just stopped paying the seller note. He lied. I owe him no money. And I just pay back the bank what I owe. And it's cash flowing just as I thought. Not as much money as I would have liked, but I'm not in a financial burden. It just cash flows different.
Yeah, I see. So it's when you're getting the deal done, it seems like the hardest part you said is between the terms and the price, right?
Yeah.
So you're kind of playing monkey in the middle with that, with the bank, the seller, the broker. Like there's all these different parties involved and you're having to sell everyone on, tell people stuff they probably don't know to get that deal finally pushed through. And with your deal, there was like just enough green flags that was like, hey, like worst possible case in this scenario, like things go completely south and it's still a profitable business. Like I should be able to make something work. Like I'm going to give it my all here. And this is a great opportunity. So, once you get that deal done, I guess like, how do you keep the business up and running? Like, do you have the seller like help you with that? Does he stay on? Like, how do you mitigate that business going down once you buy it?
Yeah, for sure. So, funny enough, I thought I was going to have the seller pretty much teach me everything. But pretty soon I realized that the seller wasn't necessarily the greatest teacher, right? But it's only because they had so much knowledge in the industry, right? It's hard to take 30 years of being a mechanic and teach that to someone in a few months, right? But what I liked about the business is that I understood the model. People brought in their high-end vehicles to my auto repair shop to get fixed. We did the repairs, we replaced the parts, we charged them for the labor, and we charged them for the part, right? And then we send them on their way. In theory, the model is simple, and I could understand that. And so what I focused on was growing the business aspects. So I needed the expertise of people who knew how to fix the cars. So I focused on hiring good mechanics. But at the end of the day, the processes of the business were my bread and butter. And so that's where I spent most of my time focusing on.
I think a big thing that I forgot about here, you said you moved back to California, and obviously I'm sure everyone like listening, you bought like an auto repair shop for luxury, like high-end vehicles specifically. And so was this business close to where you were staying, or how did you work all that out?
The business was about an hour outside of Los Angeles where I was staying. And I wanted to live in the city because I'm young. I wanted to be where the action is. And I think that being around people who are also hungry to get after it kind of pushes you forward, right? And so by being in LA, I knew there was going to be a lot of other people my age trying to make a lot of money. And so I wanted to live in the city. But when it came down to the business, I was not worried about the hour drive because I knew that I was going to build myself out of it. If anything, it was more motivation. So I drove an hour every day for about the first 9 to 12 months. And then once I built the business up to a level, then I no longer need to be there every day. And now it runs itself.
Yeah, 100%. So like for somebody that, they know it's the best opportunity, they know they can make a lot of money, they've done their research, or they have like a coach or someone helping them one-on-one to make sure that they buy the business. Like, do you think they should buy a business close to them? You think they should buy a business in like Antarctica or just some random place? Like, where should they buy the business?
Yeah, I want to talk about that for a second, is this idea of information and coaching. In that what I realized, while most people know it in general, it took me 6 months of banging my head against the wall, doing whatever I thought, would push the business forward, but only making marginal changes because I just didn't know enough, right? And so one day I went on a vacation paid for by my shop because we sold enough parts. It was a large enough company that if you sell enough parts, they send you on a vacation with other shop owners.
I see. So this is when the business is up and running and you're trying to get coaching for the business that you own.
So I go and I meet these other shop owners in Mexico, and I'm asking them, this guy tells me I got 7 shops. I'm like, 7? I still got 1. I'm trying to figure it out. He's like, you know what I did? I just got some coaching. And a light bulb went off in my head. I said, wait a minute, I knew all about coaching. Why have I not been getting coaching?
Yeah.
And the second I got back, I did all the research online and I tried to find the best auto repair shop coach, right? Shout out to the School of Automotive Excellence for that one because those guys are top tier.
You had to remember the name.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's a tough one. But
the School of Automotive Excellence.
Yeah, it's deep. And so these guys, what I love about them is that they taught me not only business, right? Or not only the specific business model, but I also learned business fundamentals from them, right? The things that you need to focus on, right? To grow a company. And so I was getting specific industry knowledge that would have taken me 20, 30 years to learn. And at the same time, I was learning the fundamentals of growing a great company. And so that lesson has stuck with me to this day, is that I put so much importance on paying or finding information, right? Because you could either go the rest of your life trying to figure out on your own, or literally overnight, you could find the best person in the business or in whatever thing you're trying to do, learn a language, play an instrument, whatever, and you could pay the best in the world to teach you, right, for a price, and instantly you have that much more experience. You have 20, 30 years of this person's experience being taught to you in a few months. Would you rather spend the rest of your life holding on to that $5, $10, $20,000, or would you rather pay to get the knowledge now and make tons of money in the future going forward? It's more expensive not to get the education than it is to get it.
No, 100%. It's really paying down your ignorance that you're either going to pay with your time or money. And that's like a big thing for me. Like sports were a big part of my life. I played soccer my whole life. And I realized I was like, Messi, for example, the best soccer player in the world, when he was 12 years old, he moved to Barcelona and started playing for FC Barcelona, one of their lower teams. And so he's getting the best training in the world at like 12, 13, 14, whatever age he was. And so by the time he's 18 years old, he's ready to join their number 1 team, and he's just on track. He just has so much compounding, so much momentum that he's on track to be the best in the world because he got that training early. So I can't reiterate that enough as well, that like finding the best people at that thing and just doing whatever it takes to either pay them or get their help or whatever you need to do to get them on your side helps you move so much quicker. But like for you, you know, you said you found the best for automotive repair coaching because you own an auto repair shop. Like, how would you vet like the person or the company or whoever you're getting this information of to help you to make sure they're going to take you from where you are to where you want to go?
Sure. Yeah. So for me, it was really about what were the offerings? What were the opportunity that they were promising? Right. So I saw that this company specifically had a lot of opportunities to meet in person. Right. I was working with a coach one-on-one regularly. Right. And they would consistently have events where people would come out as a group to talk with other shop owners. And they had specific training within their events as well. For example, if you want to learn sales or service advising, right, then they'd have a course for that. But if you were a mechanic, then they'd have a course for how to fix cars faster, better, and more diligently. And so I looked at the offerings and I compared it to everyone else in the industry. But on top of that, I also noticed they had a podcast, right?
Yeah.
And so the podcast was so informational, right? I could tell by the way that the owner of the company, Cecil Bullard, would talk about auto repair, you know, with conviction that this guy knew what he was talking about. And so by watching him, I could tell that going to his business that he had where he would coach you on how to buy companies was everything that I would need to get to the level that at least he was at, right?
Oh, yeah. I'm sure they were talking about the exact amount of nails they had to order and where
sure.
to hire mechanics. They probably found about
how to hire the best practices for hiring, you know, how to find the best price in the industry, how to value your time, everything.
That's good stuff. So you kind of vetted them. They had a podcast, and it seems like the main way you vetted them is they had very specific knowledge, and it seems like they had a lot of confidence about what they were talking about because like you can't really fake that. If you're talking about like where to hire mechanics and how many nails to order and all these like very niche mechanic shop related things, like I feel like it's more effort than it's worth to fake talking about that stuff.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, you either got it or you don't. People could read that right away. You know, one video of you talking for an hour on a podcast and people know, is this guy the real deal or not?
Yeah, I feel like you can feel it a lot of times as well. And it seems like when you were going through that deal, like there's half the battle is like looking at the numbers, knowing the right information, all this say high level education stuff. Like there's a lot of people that go to Harvard and there's a lot of them that are successful, but there's a lot of them that like aren't very successful as well. So like it seems like you kind of have to have some in the field, like almost like a sixth sense for this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think that business knowledge comes with business practice. And so the more time you have in the game, then the better you get at it. And there's no other way around it. Like if you want to get better at business, you got to be in business. And that was one of the things I realized about buying companies is that I could either start from zero like everybody else and work for years trying to get to a certain level, or I could skip every single level and get straight to making money and then figure out along as I go. And maybe that's considered more risky to the average person because I didn't know anything about running this specific shop, but I knew that I could figure out business. Right? I got a business mind. If you believe, if you were the type of person where when you were young, you were trying to find ways to make money, you had a lemonade stand or selling candy in high school or flipping burgers, whatever it takes to make money, right? Recycling, you know, going through your neighbor's trash to get bottles. It doesn't matter what it was. If you had the entrepreneurial mind, then you can go figure out how to run a business, especially, again, if you go get that coaching to back you up.
Yeah, 100%. I know, like, we've kind of talked about, like, you find the business, you make sure it's good, you buy the business, and the guy didn't really stay on very long. He wasn't the best teacher, but you did find coaching along the way.
Sure.
Just to be clear here, you looked for, like, kind of like a mid-sized deal, not super small, but still kind of small. What was it doing, $500K in profit a year, you said?
Yeah, I was doing about $600,000 every year in profit.
Okay, so $600,000 a year in profit. How did that feel the day you bought the business? Was it like the first week or 2 weeks or whatever, the first month, you just had $60K in your bank account? Or like, how did that kind of go? Like you bought a business making money.
Yeah, I remember, honestly, the most emotional time, I think, for me through going through the business it was right after I first met with the sellers, because after I went and I just had a killer meeting, I practiced for the meeting. I knew exactly what I was going to say. I knew what I was going to be talking about. And I was asking questions that the sellers couldn't answer, which means that my knowledge was above theirs. And that puts a level of respect, you know, on their plate, because of the fact that they're thinking about you as some young guy, right? If you're my age, trying to buy a business. But at the same time, I came there and I knew what I was talking about. And so they could trust that I was going to be someone who's going to be able to take their business forward. As I was driving home, I was thinking like, wow, I'm actually going to buy a business. Like the deal wasn't done. We were still right in the middle of the phase. Anything could have went wrong, but I was like, I'm actually going to pull this off. And that was a day when I was like driving home, like, wow, everything that I had worked for years and years, knowing that I could just take action on something if I just had the opportunity, if I just had the chance, if I could just find something that was worth the time. And it was a real opportunity. It wasn't, you never know, something could happen. It was guaranteed, right? There was money before and there will be money after. I just needed that opportunity. And I realized I finally found that through business acquisition. And so when that opportunity came and I was driving home, probably one of the happiest days of my life, I realized that I had figured it out.
Did you cry?
No, of course not. I mean, at the end of the day, I wish that I was
you could be honest here.
I wish I was more emotional like that. But honestly, I was just thinking like, it was one of those 1980s fist bump in the air like
That's
moments.
good.
You know what I mean?
I'm sure you've heard a lot of successful people talk about it. It's really like nothing. Like nothing happens for years.
Yeah.
You're just hitting the wall. You're just hitting the wall, and then boom, like everything happens at once, and you're like, shoot, like
Right.
is it really this easy? But
Right.
then you look back and you like see the war path
Sure,
you've
yeah.
gone down to like get to the point. You're like, well, I wouldn't say it was easy, but
Right,
it
for
was
sure.
definitely worth it.
Yeah. I mean, I bought the business and within, I don't know, I'd say 5 months, I had made the first $1 million in revenue for the company. I was
Wow.
like, there goes $1 million. So
Wow.
I wanted to make $1 million. I made it. So
You made no money for the longest, like all these opportunities, and
Right.
5 months, $1 million.
yeah, exactly. And what's great about that is that I saw that the only thing stopping me from getting the deal done was that I thought I could do it. I believed, hey, if anyone is out there making deals, why can't it be me? Why not me?
Yeah, 100%.
And so once I realized it could be me, that was it. It was game over after that.
Well, that was me with skydiving. Like I was scared to go skydiving for the
Yeah.
longest. I wanted to do it, but then I saw like girls in my high school going skydiving, like other little girls.
No
I'm
way
like,
the cheerleaders were skydiving.
no, it
before you.
literally was a cheerleader, and I was like, all right, it can't be that bad. Like, and you know, it was still scary, but it was a good time.
For sure.
That's crazy. Like doing $1 million in revenue in your first 5 months, like buying this business that makes money. And I know you said you got coaching along the way. I'm
Yeah.
sure you needed help with some things, and like I'm sure also now the businesses you're looking to buy, and when you do this all over again, you would have done it completely differently, and you know exactly how to mitigate a lot of problems that did happen. But I'm sure problems did arise, and like, you know, could you kind of go over like some of the big things that happened
Sure.
and how you were able to problem solve those?
Well, one thing is, honestly, I don't think I would have done it different because my preparation met the opportunity. And so it was the first opportunity that came across that I was actually able to pull all the strings and make it all work out. But, you know, a lot of it is up to chance. You never know which deal you're going to find. Me personally, I don't go looking for a specific type of deal. Like I'm not looking industry specific. Now, I might be looking at service-based or manufacturing, but I could be manufacturing anything. I'd be manufacturing steel, manufacturing some chemicals. It doesn't matter. I could be in services where I clean houses or I fix cars. To me, it's really about the financial aspect and the qualitative, right?
Yep.
What is the story of the business? Is this a business that's going to be around? And so that means I could end up anywhere. You know, I've got companies now I'm putting offers on all across the US and they're completely different. But the idea is that I'm building up a holding company that's going to have all these businesses that are just going to cash flow. Now, back to your question though, specifically.
Yeah,
is
like
that-
what problems came up, and like I'm sure you have a better problem solving methodology now, not only for people solving like small problems, but if they buy a business, if they own a business,
Yeah.
like, you know, how do you solve problems like that?
I mean, problem solving needs to be second nature to anyone who's in business because that's what it is. People who think that solving problems is a problem are the problems. You know what I mean? Because in business, your whole job is to be lead problem solver. That's what I tell my employees. I'm lead problem solver. All right. You come to me when there's a problem that you can't solve. But what you need to reframe your mindset around solving problems because problems are really just opportunities to make your business better.
Yep.
Right. And so if you can solve a problem that no one else has solved, especially in your industry, you make more money from it. So when I see a problem now, I feel great about the opportunity because if I can just solve this one problem, I'm going to be that many times better than my competition. For example, if hiring is an issue and you come up with a way to solve hiring for your company, guess what? Everyone else is going to have hiring issues too. Your company is just like the rest. But because you've solved that problem, now you're getting the best leads, the best employees, the best talent. And so who's going to win in the long term? The guy who solved the problem or the one who's complaining about it?
I see. So you kind of have the mindset going in that problems will come up, and you honestly want the problems to come
Yeah,
up
for
because
sure.
not only does it make you a better problem solver, make your team better, but it also makes your business better. And kind of going back to what you said earlier about the moat, that kind of creates a moat for your business because every small problem that comes up, you solve 1,000 of those, you're 1,000 problems ahead of the next guy that tries to run a mechanic shop or whatever business.
Right. Exactly. You start to build that moat around your company. And the thing is, like you said, problems are nonstop, especially when your job is actually fixing problems. For example, if you have an auto repair shop, your little job is to fix the problem of the car. So you're fixing problems nonstop. And so, you know, that comes with hiring some mechanics who are maybe less than quality, who maybe ended up making the situation worse on a car. They said they knew how to fix it, but they didn't. They need more training. That becomes a problem. You know, there's countless times when we had issues with customers because they didn't understand the work we were trying to do, right? But they were only focused on one part of the situation, which is their wallets, which is completely valid. But at the same time, you never know when it comes down to fixing a car, what exactly is going to be the issue. And so there's many times throughout the process when I realized this is something that keeps happening. The customer might be a little bit bothered because, you know, we were trying to promise a certain time frame or that a certain price, and we weren't able to match that. And so it took me to reframing the whole business structure to where now in the beginning, we lay out the whole game plan with the customer the day that they show up. So there's no surprises. And so because now the customer has been walk through the game plan of what we do to take care of their vehicle, they're now that much more informed. We've explained the why of our process. And now when something does happen, they're way more receptive of us having to change the game because they already knew what they signed up for when they brought their car to us. Those little details, while it might seem like, oh yeah, of course you have to explain to the customer, you'd be surprised how many people do not do it. And that's why you see businesses with so many bad reviews, because they're not taking the time to implement these little changes in their processes, which make their businesses so much better.
Like I have a bit of like a personal question here, like more like numbers based. I'm a numbers guy. Someone go as far as to call me a pocket watcher, but to kind of break it down here, you bought the business for, what was it, like around 1.4 million?
Yeah.
Okay, so 1 million was through the SBA loan that you took out. The seller took a note for 400,000.
It was like 370 or something like that.
370, okay.
Yeah.
And then
I had my down payment of about 50 to 60 G's.
Okay, so
and
you had
that
about
included fees and taxes and little things.
Yeah, a 50,000 down payment, which is pretty crazy that you made it stretch to, what is that, like 30 times almost? Like roughly almost 30 times the money you put in. And then the business was doing about 500-600K profit a year. And how long ago did you buy that business?
I bought that business about 2 years ago.
2 years ago. So it's been running more or less smooth since then. I'm sure there's been some ups and downs. Like,
oh yeah, for sure. I've got every horror story in the book. I've got employees who stole from me. I've hired drunks, alcoholics on accident, not knowing. I've had my shuttle van crash. I've had insurance fail on me. I've had pretty much any opportunity in business where you think it can go wrong, it's pretty much guaranteed. I remember I thought every time I leave this company, my employees call me, right? I think I've solved it. I don't need to keep showing up every day. And for some reason, every time I leave, they call me and it's a huge, crazy event. And so finally, after months and months of me working on the company, I thought, you know, I finally got enough to where I can take a break. I have to go to New York to pick up some stuff. I'm going to be gone. I'm going to leave early on a Friday, right? Mm-hmm. So I leave early Friday morning. The second I land, I get a call from my employees and they tell me, yeah, so the shuttle van that we used to take the customers home, yeah, that's totaled. Basically some customer ran and drove into something and the insurance isn't going to cover it. And so it's going to have to come out of pocket.
Dang.
And that was literally the second I landed. And things like that happened to me nonstop year one of the business. And I'm sure they're still happening now. But I'm not the one who needs to be there to solve the problems anymore. I've hired the talent and they go out and they've solved these problems.
Yeah, and that's what I was kind of getting into is like, even, like I said, there's probably ups and there's, just like you said and described, the downs.
Yeah.
And the fact is like the business is still operational. It's still functional. It's still making money to this day.
Yeah.
Well, you're in Colombia. You're not in California where the business is. Like, how much is the business now doing in profit, and how much is it kind of done in revenue and profit since you bought it 2 years ago?
Yeah, so I've grown the business about 25% since I bought it. There was a slight dip after, I'd say, about the first 6 months of the business. That's pretty normal. I want people to understand that. When you buy these companies, you're not going to be as skilled as the guy who's been running it for 20 years. Mm-hmm. So you shouldn't expect that you're going to match the profits right away. That's something you need to pay attention to when you're calculating your debt services, right? Because if you know the business is going to take a slight dip for 6 to 12 months and while you're learning the business, well, you shouldn't go out and over leverage yourself if you're not going to be able to make all the debt payments. And so I knew that was going to be in mind. And so for the first 6 months, I didn't do as well as the previous owner. But again, as I got the training and I started to figure out the processes and I started to tweak things and hire good employees, then I started to really grow the business. And so the business revenue overall has grown 25% since I first bought it, which to the bottom line adds about $100,000 in EBITDA.
Okay. Like, how much has the business done total in revenue and profit in the past 2 years since? Because, I mean, you went through a lot of work, a lot of hardship, all this stuff to like figure all these problems out. Like, you know, how much have you been kind of compensated for that?
Over $1 million cash in my pocket.
So you basically become a millionaire. You went from zero to buying the business to like, there was ups, there was downs, but, and there's a lot of problems to solve.
Yeah.
But since you've been able to put a team in place, and get the business up and running, operational,
Right.
you've now become a millionaire and still profit from the business. Like, I wouldn't quite say passively, but like more or less passively while living in another country.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's definitely a lot more passive now. I've got a good virtual assistant who handles most of the insurance, taxes, financial discrepancies, email coverage. Also sends out text blasts to my customers and my employees to get us all on the same page week over week. And every now and again, I might be added to the group chat for information, but everything besides that is just smooth sailing.
Nah, that's super solid. I mean, you literally became a millionaire and then get to kind of travel the world.
Yeah.
Do what you want from that. I guess like that's kind of your story up until now. Like, the business is running. You're over here in Colombia. What's next for you? Are you looking at buying more businesses, or are you just going to chalk it up and retire now? Like, what's next?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely never chalk it up. I think that if you're the type of person like me where you've always wanted to not necessarily just have money, but you wanted to be free, that's like my biggest thing. I wanted freedom. I wanted freedom over everything. If you ask me, like, what is my greatest value? Like, I want to be free. And being free, while a lot of people say they want it, you know, they're not willing to pay the sacrifice of freedom. I know I sound like a military ad right now, but it's true. If you really want to go all in and create the life that you want and build the dreams, you know, that you dream about at night, but you want to make them into reality during the day, then you need to be able to think bigger.
Yeah.
And as time went on and being in business, I realized that while you think you're thinking big because you're doing things, how big you're actually thinking is that you've pretty much limited yourself no matter what. And the reason why is because everyone else limits themselves. And once I realized that I had these shackles on my mind of what I could do within my life, I just decided to take them off, because the only person that's tying me to them is me. And so once I did one deal, right, 0 to 1 is the hardest.
Yep.
Right? Getting from my first deal from no deals to one deal showed me I could do it. But getting from 1 to 2, 1 to 100, I just got to keep doing what I've been doing. And if I'm looking at it from a perspective of it all depends on how big I can dream, then I'm thinking, if I only got one life, in all of history, in all of eternity, I'll be here one time, and that's it. And this is my one opportunity. Do I want to live mediocre, or do I want to live great? Do I want to be good, or do I want to be great? Right? You can have a good life. That's good for you. But do you want to be great? And if you want to be great, then you got to think big. And the only thing that's stopping you from that is your own limitations.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like you want to be great here, and you keep doubling down on it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, are you going to be looking to buy more businesses? Like, what kind of value of businesses are you looking at? What's that kind of look like for you?
As time went on, I actually realized that you don't need the money, you just need the deal.
Okay.
And I've learned more strategies about buying businesses where I don't need money. And I know everyone talks about, oh, no money down this and no money down that, real estate, whatever, this business opportunity. Most of those are fake, or they work, but in a very, very small amount of ways, where the amount of work that you have to do to get a deal done like that is tremendous.
Why do you think people say that then?
Because most people don't have money.
Yep.
And so it's easy to tell people that if they can do things without having any money, then they have the best opportunity. But what I realize is that there is a truth to it, in that if you have the deal, the money will come, right? And I learned that through actually real estate. Back when I was looking at real estate, they always used to say that on Bigger Pockets, like one of my favorite channels back in the day, YouTube channel. If you have the deal, the money will come. And it's true, but it applies to business at a whole different level. Not only will the money come, but the money's already there. The business already makes the money, and you can use that money to make it more money and buy the business itself. You can use the assets of the business, right, to take loans out against the business, which allow you to use it as a down payment for the business. In real estate, this would be like impossible. It'd be like if you borrow against the refrigerator, right, in the oven, so you can get some money for a down payment on the duplex, right? They'd never let you do that. But in business acquisition, the sky's the limit. You are only bound by the creativity of your mind. Like whatever you could come up with, you could pretty much get it done if you could find the right person to talk to. And trust me, you're gonna get a lot of no's. Everyone tells me the stuff that I do can't be done until I do it, right? Even my first deal, it's super simple. It's an SBA loan, but instead of 10% down, I put 5 because the seller had a portion of equity that I'd pay to him over time. 5 out of 10 banks told me it couldn't be done. The other 5 said, yeah, we do it all the time. So who am I going to listen to, right? They're both banks. They both have more experience than me, but there's the 5 that said it couldn't be done and the 5 who said it could. Well, I'm going to go with the people who say they can get my deal done. And so now with that knowledge, I realize that the sky's the limit. If I don't need money, which is the most limiting factor for everyone getting deals done, if money is not what stops me anymore, then what's stopping me from doing bigger deals? Absolutely nothing. So now I do deals that are 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 million dollars. I just put in an offer for a business the other day for 43 million. The 43 million is not coming from my bank account, but it doesn't need to, right? It's the opportunity. The opportunity is real. I structured the deal in a way where I can pay back the bank. It cash flows. It's super safe, right? And the business itself is in an industry that's been around forever.
Yeah, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but obviously you seem pretty confident about the opportunity. Not only did you buy your first business, but you're doubling down on it, going for deals like 10, 20 times the size. And it almost seems like it's like always been this clash of like business versus real estate. And you always hear the saying like, oh, real estate makes the most millionaires. Business or buying businesses or private equity, whatever you want to call it, makes the most billionaires, which is like, a lot of people are also saying that the billionaires, like, 100 years ago, like $100 million, or you're a millionaire, because pretty much everyone's a billionaire these days, every time you turn on the news. So it almost seems like a revolution where like, I'm sure if market cycles, like everyone comes into an opportunity and those people make the money. And then once the opportunity starts to die out, it becomes too saturated. The margins become too thin and people are kind of just losing money. They're kind of too late to that opportunity. It doesn't matter if you're buying a stock. It doesn't matter if you're in a business opportunity, whatever. Like, what part of the market cycle do you feel like buying businesses and this stuff is at?
As far as the opportunity goes, there's clearly not a lot of people who know about it because there's not a lot of people talking about it. But as more people do start to catch on and realize the silver tsunami, there's a lot of baby boomers who are trying to retire. They have a lot of assets that they own, most of them being businesses that they need to sell or get rid of. More people will come onto the opportunity because it's just such a great opportunity. It is so life-changing. Like one deal and you can be done. One deal and you have the business making the money that you've always dreamed about making. You don't need to keep doing more. And so when you come across opportunities like that, once people realize there's government money that you can take, the down payment is 5 or 10% compared to real estate, which is 20+% to get into those deals. And on top of that, you can get creative and borrow against the assets of the business and come in with partners and whatever. And all these opportunities to buy these businesses are just laid out pretty easily. There's not a lot of roadblocks in the way except for you doing the work. Well, then people are going to realize, well, maybe this is the opportunity for me and more people are going to get after it. But I'd say the gap is maybe 5 years left before everyone realizes that they should be buying businesses and then they're all bought. And then once they're bought, it becomes like any other market, everything's overpriced. Mm-hmm. Supply and demand.
I don't want to seem like materialistic here. I know a lot of it's like finances and money and like buying businesses. And like you said, the biggest thing for you is the freedom. Like, so the money translates to the freedom. And like, what does that freedom mean for you? What does that allow you to do in your life? Like, what are you looking to do with that freedom?
For me personally, I want to be dialed human on all aspects, right? So like, what does that mean is that like, there's this idea in culture, like of the Renaissance man, a person who is completely sophisticated in all ways, right? And so that's someone who's not just wealthy, right? But they also have these characteristics about them which make them a complete human, right? And so like Socrates, Plato, they all talk about like, what does it mean to be a complete human, right? So it's not just enough to be rich. Like you also have to be fit and healthy, right? Because who wants to be a billionaire who's on his deathbed 24/7 because he's been eating too much McDonald's,
100%,
right? You got to have it all. And who wants to be the guy who has all the money and is super healthy, but spiritually they're completely poor, completely bankrupt, They have nothing in life, right? Their family doesn't talk to them. They have no relationship with God. There's nothing.
Yeah.
While most people think that they can live off of one of those attributes, just the money or just the health, you need all three, right? And that also means living a life with adventure where your day-to-day routine doesn't become monotonous. And the more adventure that you can inject into your life, the more days you'll remember, right? If I spend 1 year working in an office where I send emails every day, I'm not going to remember that year in 20 years.
No.
But if every single week I'm celebrating an event, I'm hosting an opportunity, I'm meeting with friends, I'm growing my relationships, I'm becoming a better human, then what type of life will I get to look back on in 20, 30, 40, 50 years at the end and say, wow, look what I was able to do. There's so many memories that every day felt like my birthday.
Yeah, I mean, it's a deep answer, but I think it will resonate with a lot of people out there. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that are listening to this or listening to 100 more videos, and they feel like they're the type of person that can do it, and they feel like they want more out of their life. They're just looking for the right opportunity and like just kind of the right sprint to make it all happen. Because like you said, like one deal and you're out, huh?
I think that if you get into the wrong deal, then you could set yourself back a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important that you get the right deal, that you know what you're doing before you get started. But all it takes is one opportunity to change your life forever for the better.
Mm-hmm.
Because once you have put the work in and you find that opportunity and that deal, you set yourself up in a way that you never need to look back again. Especially because of not just you owning the business, right? This is super important. It's not just the business that you have now, but you also have the knowledge. Mm-hmm. And that can never be taken away from you. Once you learn how to do one deal, if you lose everything, guess what? You know how to do it all again.
Oh, yeah.
You know how to run it all back up, right? And that's what's even more important. I would much rather have the knowledge than the business I have.
Would you say the knowledge is the most important part?
The most important. Again, I thought that I needed money to buy deals. Now I'm doing huge deals by myself, no investors, only because I know more about deal making. It's not because I have all of this excess cash in reserve and things like that. It's just because I know how to put a deal together. That's all it took was the knowledge. Mm-hmm. If I would have had this in the beginning, I would have went for bigger deals day one.
I think a lot of people get worried. I think they think it's very risky, but it's just lack of preparation leads to that. With all that being said here, like honestly, like two more questions. Like who would you say this opportunity isn't for?
The thing about buying businesses is that it does take a type of person who wants to make money. So I guess if you don't want to make outsized returns, right? Mm-hmm. That's what business is all about, outsized returns. If you don't want to make outsized returns for time and effort that you put into the world and in your work and your effort, then you don't want to buy a business. If risk, debt, and not knowing where your next check is going to come from, then that's a risk that you probably shouldn't take, right? But that's business in general. Don't get into business. If you really want the most passive asset, go buy. It's not real estate, and it's not even really stocks. It's stocks that produce dividends. If you want to go buy the most passive thing, you can go buy a stock with AT&T, and they'll give you $4 a year per share of stock in passive income and spend all your money with them and live off those dividends. And that's the most passive you could ever be. You don't have to do anything, right? They run the company, you get the check.
I guess the opportunity is not for people that I guess don't want to make money or don't want to make outsized returns on their money. And then who would you say the opportunity is for?
The opportunity isn't for those people, but the opportunity is for the people who do.
Okay.
Outsized returns is important. If you want to make more money than everyone else, this is it.
You know, I'll shoot it straight here. Like, I'm not the oldest person out there. You're also not the oldest person. I guess you do have a bit more credibility from, you know, making $1 million from your business, buying a business, and having all this knowledge and things like that. But why should people even listen to you about this stuff?
For sure. I mean, the thing is, again, I'm just like everybody else at the end of the day. I'm somebody who wanted to make a good life for myself and realized that if I was going to do it, I can't take the same route as everyone else. Going to college, applying for jobs, and, you know, making around the median income for 20, 40 years until I could retire just didn't seem like a good opportunity for me. I didn't want to waste the one life that I had doing that. Not saying it's a bad thing, but for me, that's not what I wanted to do. So what I would say is that if you're going to use the same strategy that I have, then you have to ask yourself, are you the type of person to do the work? Again, when I got back home to California, I told myself I was going to buy a business or I was going to die, right? That was the mindset that I had. And it's like, is it really that serious, right? Well, the work and the effort is really not much than going to flip burgers at McDonald's. It's the same amount of effort. I promise you. If anything, I'd rather be at home calling brokers than flipping burgers, right? But the idea behind it is so big that not just anyone can do it. Right? It takes a specific type of person to go after something so large. And so it's going to take time. You know, a little anecdote is that when I first heard of business acquisition, I didn't even understand it. You know, like it didn't even make sense to me. I couldn't comprehend it. I was like, wait, people buy businesses? And I was like, okay, like they invest in some sort of like company, like in the stocks or something, right? And I was like, okay, no. They buy, okay, like how you can like buy a McDonald's, right? I was like, okay, yeah, that kind of makes sense. The concept of being able to buy a business that wasn't a franchise was like, wait a minute. You're telling me somebody can just have a business out there, could be completely random. This guy manufactures bottle caps or something like that. And I can go buy that company and it's been around for 20, 30, 40 years and it's making millions every year. And what's the competition? Nope, nothing. Nobody knows about it. People are still thinking, oh, I'm gonna buy my first rental property, then I'm gonna get a second, and before I die, I'm gonna own a Burger King.
I'm gonna have 10 doors.
Yeah. 10 doors and a pizza shop and a coffee shop. Like, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
10 Subways. I remember that. Like my mom had a smoothie shop growing up, and right down the street, she had a friend who was like a business friend who would, he owned like 6 Subways. And to me, that guy was the guy. I used to think like, oh yeah, I'm going to own like 20 Subways. You know what I mean? But if I look now, my one business probably makes more than all 6 of his Subways, you know, because the margins are so slim. It's the restaurant business. I learned a lot from that. And I realized that not every opportunity is the same. And it's so funny that, you know, I really want to stress that understanding business acquisition is very complex. I literally saw this guy buying, you know, at 12 years old, multiple Subways. And I still didn't understand the concept of buying businesses until I was 22. It was because it doesn't make sense until you really think about it. But once you finally let it click, you realize this is game changing. I just solved the secrets to the universe.
Do you think you'll become a billionaire through this?
My goal was never to be a billionaire. I just wanted to be as free as possible. But if I look at the numbers, and even if I'm conservative, if I keep buying 4 companies every single year, what happens is that you get these network effects almost, where a company, the larger it is, the more valuable it becomes. But the returns tend to be exponential, right? So in the beginning, you know, $1 is worth $1. Your $1 in the company is worth 1. But the larger your company becomes, every dollar your company makes, now it's worth 5 times. Now it's worth 10. Now it's worth 20. So if I have a business where I'm making $10 million, it's no longer worth 10 million. It's worth 100. So if I'm buying a business, all the business I buy now are at least $1 million in profit every year. If I buy 4 every year until I'm 35, right? I'm doing what, 60 million or something like that? Forgot the math, but I'd be doing like 60 million, right? And you multiply that, not times 5, not times 10, but times 15. 15 times 60 million, I'm pretty much a billionaire. And so the idea is that once you realize what it is, the game, and once you realize how to do it, at this point, I'm coasting. I just got to keep doing it, right? More and more effort, more output. But it's not as though I need to keep figuring out bigger and bigger. I just need to keep doing what I've already done at the same level consistently for the next 9 years. And then I'm there.
Yeah. I mean, can you think of another opportunity out there? Like, it seems like at the current rate you're at, just with like conservative growth, if you just keep doing what you're doing, just show up every day, you basically be a billionaire, which is crazy to say out loud. But can you think of like another opportunity or another path of getting there?
Yeah, I'd say the other opportunities would be investing in like a venture capital, being some sort of investor, which is similar to what I do, but I'm a little bit more hands-on. I might get into the company and pull levers, but you could also be like an angel investor where you invest in opportunities, or you can go and create like a technology company, right? You could be $1 billion unicorn. But if I was going to be a betting man, which I'm not, but let's say that I was, I would bet that you have a 1 in a million chance of creating a $1 billion company through technology, unless you're just that smart. And then maybe it's 1 in 100,000, right? And if you go buy businesses, you're buying things that already cash flow. It's like buying real estate. They already exist. They've been around. They make money. You just keep doing it. And then who's to say that once you have all this money, you can't go and buy real estate after if you really want to scratch that itch, right?
Yeah, to own a skyscraper in like a downtown.
Yeah, for sure. Wait, I gotta throw this out there. Once you get into buying businesses, this is just a side note. It gets so much fun because you get to realize you don't just have to buy boring stuff anymore. You can buy cool stuff.
True.
Like I'm gonna buy a Top Golf, some island somewhere that I can like, I don't know, throw golf parties if I like golfing. I don't know. You know, I can have pretty much anything. I can build rockets, buy SpaceX, whatever. The point is that in the beginning, you buy stuff because of cash flows. But once you have the money, you can just buy stuff that you like.
You gonna buy like a nightclub in Saint Tropez or something?
Oh yeah, Ibiza.
No, I mean, I think that's pretty much everything. I think there's a ton of good information you dropped. Like, really appreciate you hopping on the pod here today.
Yep.
Is there anything else you want to say? Is there any companies you're running or anything you think could be valuable for the audience?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you guys could reach out to me on LinkedIn, Raven Harris, or Raise Money Clip at on Instagram. You know, and I'm always happy to help people who are trying to get on the same path.
Perfect, brother. Well, I appreciate you showing up here, and probably talk soon.